Hi, this is Julie and JP. Good afternoon. It's Monday, July 20th, and this is Bookmark. This is our weekly recap of the prior week's events and commentaries.
Yeah, and news items and things like that we find interesting and want to talk to you about. They may not be things that are talked about everywhere, but we find them kind of interesting and we bookmark them.
Yeah.
Stop that. All right.
Okay.
All right, nerd.
So let's talk about the first thing that is on our list.
So this is the COVID cover-up, as I titled it. So there's just a ton of talk out there, and a lot of different sources that we watched. And we've noticed that a lot of people are just operating on the assumption that this is a virus and we have to address these things. And what we're saying is we need to stop talking about the virus, okay? Because that just legitimizes what's been done to us. It doesn't matter, the conclusion that we've come to is that it doesn't matter whether there's a virus or not. It doesn't matter if it was a man-made, or if it was naturally occurring, or if it was just a marketing campaign. It doesn't matter, because what does matter is the aftermath. What has happened has been an even bigger marketing campaign,
right?
To push the idea that a virus has happened, and it requires the need for the entire society to shut down, for people to put muzzles on their faces, to go to the store, to stand 6 feet apart, to distance themselves. And for kids to have to be subjected to these horrible things that they're planning to put the kids through in the schools. So it doesn't really matter. What matters, though, is that this is a cover-up. This is a like I said, an excuse, a campaign to cover up what's really going on. And there's several things that are going on, and we hear about them from different sources, but we never hear everybody kind of putting them together.
It's a currency war,
For one, it's a currency war.
Currency war.
Yeah, you want to talk about that, Ahara?
I mean, not really. I think we all know that it's a currency war. What we're looking at is unemployment rates, the likes we've never seen before in history, in world history. Obviously they want to transition into the technocrats, the techno-fascists, want to transition into a cashless society. These are all things that our audience knows.
Mm-hmm.
No, what we're hoping to do is drop a little breadcrumb of knowledge into the laps of people who maybe don't understand what's happening.
One place I could tell you to go. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. One place I can tell you to go to find out more about this idea is this line of inquiry is the Solari report with Catherine Austin Fitts. She often has other people on the show with her, so look at her. She's the one that talks about this a lot. And she talks about how, we're being pushed into a situation where human beings will now be what is traded. Not gold, not commodities, not, real estate, humans.
Right. And just so that you know that we're recommending someone that is legitimate, Catherine Austin Fitts was the undersecretary for the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the first Bush administration. That's who she is. And so she did her time in government and has since retired and started her own platform and her own website and her own educational facility, whatever.
Right,
so
right.
that's what she does, is she educates people.
Right, and does a lot of investigative, you could call it investigative journalism, but it's along those lines. She's sort of a media outsource or source now, outlet.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that we know of is the Great Reset. Okay, so we did a video about the Great Reset back. We released it like right around the time that they announced it. We were already working on it, so we already knew that these things were coming down, but then down the pike. But then the World Economic Forum released what they called the Great Reset, and part of that is the Green New Deal, the New Deal for nature, I should say, and basically resetting the economy to where we're all going to be. It involves population reduction, which is another point here. It involves the fourth industrial revolution. It involves, go to our video, I'll put a little link to that, the Great Reset video.
One of the things that I really like about the World Economic Forum's website is that they have like this interface, which is like a design that you can play with on their website. So they have an interface that has a ball, and then out of the ball are little spikes. So the inside of the ball, the center of the ball is Corona or COVID-19, and then you've got the Great Reset, the Fourth Industrial Revolution, 5G, population manipulation, things like that. You've got food, you've got all sorts of things that come out of the ball. So that's a really excellent resource to go and get information. Of course, it looks like something really fun and amazing and like something you'd really want to be on board with. But because we have marketing backgrounds and we know that marketing is basically manipulation of the brain, we look at it through the lens of people who, are not manipulated. So we take these great ideas they have and we go, oh yeah, so this is basically turning the entire population into slavery. Got it, because we were able to interpret the language.
Yeah, so another resource for that would be The Art of Annihilation. And what was the other site? Corey's other site?
Well, it's Wrong Kind of Green.
Wrong Kind of Green, yeah.
Right.
I'll put links in our show notes for those.
So I think we've pretty much covered, that the COVID-19 narrative, anything having to do, I'm just going to wrap up this first section of Bookmark today, is that COVID-19, anything having to do with a virus is actually a big cover-up for other things. And the biggest cover-up of all is that there is nothing on the planet, there is no gold, there is no oil, that will be enough to pay for the debt that we have built up over the years, except there is one thing on the planet that may be able to pay back the debt that the planet has accumulated over the years, and that's human beings. So basically turning human beings into the capital that will pay back the debt. Now, there's a lot of techno-fascism involved in that process. There's a lot of really detailed, I could go down the rabbit hole and take you into the minutia of it, or you could just go to Wrench in the Gears, which is Alison McDowell's site, and she goes into great detail about what that means. But this is Bookmark. We're just doing an overview of this week's topics.
Okay, in fact, I was thinking about all the details and things like that too, and I'm like, ugh.
We could be here for hours.
Because there's global governance and there's the UN agendas and all these things, but we'll leave it at that.
Right.
But taking that and moving into another thing. This morning, Julie brought up an article to me. She presented it to me by text. And said,
I know, right?
I'm waking up. I'm all groggy. You need to read this.
I know. He's like, why can't most wives care about their lipstick shade? Why do you have to wake me up with off-guarding articles?
Well, if it's not the kitten waking me up at 4 a.m. saying, I want to eat, and get attention and play, it's off-guarding articles on my phone. Anyway, this off-guarding article was so toxic that Twitter had to tell you that you have to enter at your own risk and read at your own risk.
Right.
Okay?
So just very quickly, can I insert this kind of? I mean, this has been happening for a few weeks now, but I'll go ahead and just bring it up a little bit on Facebook and on Twitter. What you get are, you have a friend that you're connected to on Facebook, a Facebook friend or a Twitter friend, and they post an article. And so you're like, oh, that looks interesting. So you click the article, and immediately what comes up is a Facebook or Twitter message that says, enter at your own risk. Oh my goodness, our little trolls have been busy at work, clarifying that this article is dangerous to your health and that it's not fact-based and all this stuff, and you get distracted with everything that Twitter and Facebook are warning you about. And so when someone goes like this a lot and goes, look over there, oh my gosh, and tries to scare you, then that's probably their way of saying that this is actually something really good, something that will benefit you, something that will help you think. And so you're going to want to click it and read it anyway. So that's my interpretation of fact checkers. And so that's what happened with this particular Off Guardian article. I found for the first time in all the years that I've been on Twitter, which hasn't been for very long, I found for the first time that Twitter had actually put that screen over the article that said, our fact checkers, felt that this article was a danger to your cognitive dissonance. And that's my interpretation of it. And if you really want to go forward, you can go ahead and click here, but I wouldn't if I were you.
Yeah.
But I went ahead and clicked anyway, of course, because, anytime someone tries to take something away from you, which will help you understand what's going on, when they want to hide things from you, that's a toxic relationship. That's not a relationship that you want to put a lot of investment into. I use Facebook and I use Twitter and their platforms to make some really awesome connections, which we have. We've made amazing connections through those platforms. And so I use them, but I don't let them use me.
Right. Yeah, good point. No, what was the title of this article? I forget.
I can look it up.
We'll put it in the show notes.
Yeah.
Basically, it was talking about it was talking about the Great Reset, and how it just happened to coincide.
The Great Reset Fraud.
Okay.
Is
by
the name
Matthew Ehret.
Matthew Ehret.
Yeah.
So of the Off Guardian.
So it's a short article. You can get through it, but it ended kind of abruptly, I thought. But
I know, it was like the end.
I was setting in for a big long read, and it was like all of a sudden at the end, I'm like, "What is that? It?"
Well, maybe it'll continue on.
Okay, but that said, so it won't take too much of your time to get into it. It talks about the Great Reset and like what's behind it, the fact that it came about on June 3rd. So happened to coincide so well with the COVID thing, right? Like what we were talking about earlier. It was talking about what's going on, just like what we were talking about before. Is this cover up, and it's like he comes out and says we're facing a 2 quadrillion derivatives bubble. So basically, the thing to take away from that, and Julie talked about that this morning on her Periscope channel, which
it's an audio that I talk into the audio. It goes live on Twitter. Some of my Twitter followers will listen and retweet it. What we do is we often take the link and we upload the link onto our Book of Hours Facebook page. So if you're interested in like my little 3-minute or 2-minute or sometimes 10-minute little audios, you can listen to that. But usually I just use it as a way to get through, process ideas and thoughts so that it's captured somehow, and share it out there.
So the takeaway for her was the word bubble. It doesn't matter if you understand what derivatives are or not, and we could go into that, but I don't really feel like it because I'm not a financial person, and I was reading about it this morning. And it's
complicated.
It's complicated. It's basically an insurance policy on an investment, right?
Right.
That's the basic.
That's a pretty good.
It's the most simplistic way to look at it, but it gets into really complicated shit that I don't understand. And so the important thing is to take away from this is a bubble and 2 quadrillion. Okay, quadrillion. It's like that's the kind of word you'd come up with as a kid, right? You go, right. I have a quadrillion amount of whatever, right?
Yeah, it's like you can't even fathom.
You can't. It's more than trillions.
Amount of money
it
just doesn't even like you can't.
So
we're fucked.
So there's this bubble based on derivative value, which is basically betting on bets. Right, which just doesn't make any sense at all. So this is air holding up hotter air, right?
Yeah.
And it's gonna pop and it's gonna make a big fucking mess. And the other thing that they didn't mention that I would like to talk about real quick is as you go around the country. I mean, we live in Pittsburgh, so everything more or less looks shitty. But
it's like
except for certain parts of town. But
even then, the nice parts are like ruined.
But all the same. I mean, there's some big mansions from the old world, but anyway.
From Heinz ketchup.
Yeah, the Heinz family and the steel magnates and all that. But
whatever.
It's hard to believe that we're living in a depression right now because they're doing such a good job of covering it up, but apparently it's going to get even worse. So hey, we at least have that to look forward to.
Yeah, no, it's not hard to believe we're living in a depression. I mean, seriously, like Pittsburgh is a very good example of what some of the more robust cities like Chicago, London, San Francisco, New York
are going to
become. Pittsburgh and New York are very good examples because they've already been scapegoated so badly over the years since the 90s. You know, because of neoliberalism and the loss of, you know, blue collar jobs and all that stuff. And, you know, so we're looking at you know, giant populations within the city that live in what looks like a ghetto, and then you walk around the corner and you'll see one big gleaming building for Carnegie Mellon where they're doing all the transhumanism bullshit, and then a block later it's back to the ghetto. Clearly their priorities are not with the people. The priorities are with the future.
And about 30 years ago I noticed something like that in Baltimore. I was walking around Baltimore and it was the same kind of thing where it's like you went from one neighborhood into the slums, into the kind of thing you'd see in Mumbai or something, you know.
Totally. I mean, that's how I described when we were traveling the country to look for a place to land and own and sort of homestead in, because we knew what was going to happen on a certain existential and economic level. We knew that something was going to happen to cause everything to flatten. And I was like, we've got to get out of our rent-controlled apartment. I don't want to be living in a building where I have to share a wall with 12 other people in a small apartment. Now, it was a beautiful apartment in one of the most beautiful neighborhoods in the world, but I wanted space. I wanted a yard that we could grow food and plants and flowers. I wanted a house that I could own outright, so I wouldn't be beholden to a mortgage company or a landlord. And thank God.
I know, right?
Thank God. So, you know, we moved to this area of deep, deep poverty. We found a cheap house with good bones. You know, it needs some TLC, but honestly, like, we made the best decision. And I don't mean to go on and on about our personal stuff, but I think it helps when you know how the decisions that we made to get through this.
Right.
This is something that we've been expecting for 5 years or more. I no longer for me, but you know, it's something that we sort of prepared for. And so when we moved here and I knew that everything was going to be flattened financially, I didn't know if it was going to be a virus. I didn't know if it was going to be a manufactured crash, kind of like the 2008 crash, but I knew it was coming in ways that would be staggering to the globe. I knew it. But how do you tell people who sometimes don't know what words mean? So, the apocalypse is nigh. It's going to happen. Well, how do you tell that to the guy that runs the bar down the street, you know? So, you just kind of have to...
Yeah, it's the equivalent, like you end up being the equivalent of those old cartoons that would show a guy walking around the street
with a sign
that says the end of the world is ending soon, you know?
Right, and I'm no Cassandra. Like, I'm not going to be... I'm not going to be pitted like the crazy guy on the street with the sign, or the guy sitting on the crate in the middle of the downtown square in rags, you know, screaming about the apocalypse.
Right.
That's not what we're here for. We're just here to archive history creatively and, you know, satirically, and hopefully it lands. Hopefully it lands with you.
So it would be nice if, like, these cities could become more, I don't know, what's the word, resilient to these kinds of economic downturns, and maybe...
Nice segue.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Or environmental problems and catastrophes. And, well, it just so happens that there are programs out there that are doing just that.
Hey urban planners, Tori Eveningstar here, your one and only source for deep dives into public-private partnerships. Because the same system that created the very need for true resilience to economic and environmental disaster will not and cannot change anything. Now that the Rockefeller philanthropists are funding resilient cities again, the money is flowing to make sustainability the foundation of urban planning and the future for cities around the world.
Would please donate to patreon.com. You will have an opportunity to actually watch our newest video essay, which is in the form of a short cartoon. We brought Tori Morningstar back to talk about resilient cities.
No, Tori Eveningstar.
I'm sorry. We brought Tori Eveningstar back. We brought Tori Eveningstar back to talk about resilient cities and explain who's who and how they're funded and how they actually really don't do anything for cities that actually do need support and help.
And they actually, and to tell you the truth, I mean, they go along the same lines of what we were talking about with the Great Reset and things this nature, private public partnerships, blockchain grid.
All of these things equal fascism. So public, private. So public companies. So tell us what a public company is.
So public-private partnerships.
I know, but let's talk.
But public means that it's government.
Okay, so government, which is public, and then private, which is corporations like Google or anything really. So when they merge, when you've got government merging with corporations, so public, private merging, that's fascism.
So the other thing that comes in with that are the NGOs and the SMOs and all the other
NGOs,
acronyms.
non-governmental organizations, SMOs like Black Lives Matter, is social movement organizations. And it's important you get these acronyms down. And so anytime you hear the term public-private partnership, sounds good. Maybe it comes from your local nonprofit. Red flag. That's fascism.
Right. So these things come together in these initiatives that are brought about through the Resilient Cities programs, and they always, again, like we talk about in our other videos, they use feel-good language. You go to the websites and it's like rainbows and lollipops, and this is all for the good of the community. Well, as you may have known from watching our other videos and knowing from communitarianism, the video, that when they talk about the community, they're not talking about our neighborhood.
Right.
They're not talking about your town and your township or your municipality. They're talking about the community of public-private partnerships that are coming together to establish policy that will ultimately make money for corporations and for the cities to do with what they will. But generally, and the nonprofits as well. So the nonprofits will set up programs that will get poor people like the unemployed or underemployed into situations where they will always be working extra hard and never really seeing anything from that.
Right.
With the money going up to what is that called? Social impact investments.
Right.
Okay.
So all of this is really technical and difficult, but let me give you a really down-to-earth, grounded example. So we live in a neighborhood of deep poverty, which really needs development. We need playgrounds, we need infrastructure, meaning we need all of our roads paved. We need better options for food. We need a market. We need a market that everybody can go to, that they can walk to instead of having to get in their car and drive.
Right.
We need bike lanes. We need development. So all of that I'm describing, we need better schools, all of it. So everything I'm describing is called development. So right down the street from us is a community development center. Perfect. And they have a beautiful website. The end.
The end. Yeah.
So,
not much has come out of it.
Yeah.
And again, they
so
fit into that whole.
That's what that's about.
Yeah, and they fit into the whole public-private partnership.
Yeah, they are the epitome of that corporate fascism that we were talking about.
And so, when you have conversations with these organizations and people,
really good people.
Well, when you have conversations with these things, you get a lot of marketing talk, a lot of evangelization, but nothing really happens.
Right.
And you can point to pushback from the community, But there's a reason for that pushback, and a lot of times I think that that's because the initiatives that are being put out there don't necessarily reflect the needs of the community they say they're serving. So we talk about that a little bit in the cartoon. It's only a 7-minute video, so we don't cover a lot. But we do cover some basic points, and we wanted to try to bring up this idea of resilient cities in a fun way. And again, we had some help from Allison from Wrenching the Gears. So go to her site, and she talks about the investment that I just talked about, social impact investing.
Yeah.
Tori Eveningstar talks about that as well. So these are sources that we use to create our content, and we had a lot of fun with this one. These cartoons, they take longer than regular videos, and so it's shorter than anything else we do, but it's more fun to watch.
Yeah, animation is a lot of fun because you're literally creating something out of nothing.
Mm-hmm.
And so this Tori Eveningstar character that we created, I practiced with her voiceover, and then we use different animation backgrounds and backdrops, and we create you create rain. Basically it's really cool. It's a lot of fun. It would have been fun to go into that industry.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was never an animator per se.
No.
But I would have enjoyed doing that, I think.
Just putting it together.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
it was a lot of fun to make. So please go to our Patreon page, patreon.com/bookofhours, and you can see the full 7-minute video by signing up to be a monthly patron for like $2 a month.
Right.
Or you can go to our PayPal page and make a small donation, and we'll send you a private link. Early access private link.
Yeah.
We typically, what we do is we finish a project, and then we release it to our patrons, and we release it to our donors first, and then give everyone an opportunity to have early access to it, and then we release it to the public a week to 10 days later.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, so look for that. PayPal.me/bookofhours. And
$5 donation, we'll send you the link.
Yep, $5 or more.
Yep.
Or go to patreon.com/bookofhours. All one word, Book of Hours. Okay.
Let's go on to...
let's one more plug.
Mm-hmm.
We started an Instagram page about a week or two ago, and we're putting up real short little video loops and some images here and there. We just released one yesterday. We're also releasing our the new model series on their Instagram TV, IGTV channel.
Mm-hmm.
So you can also see our Great Reset, our new model,
The new model
videos.
series.
So
Right.
I don't know if Quarantiri's on there, but
It is. Mm-hmm.
yeah, the Great Reset,
right.
introduction, and communitarianism, I think, is up there now.
Right.
So you can see those.
Quarantine, not yet.
Yeah,
But-
so you can see those on our Instagram channel as well as YouTube, and we're going to open it up to other platforms out there soon, but we haven't done that yet. Okay,
Sure.
we'll announce that when those things happen. All right, so moving along.
Yeah. Let's go on to the sort of this idea of 20th century thinking.
Mm-hmm.
So one of the ways, here's an example of 20th century thinking. Okay. So JP and I are homeowners, which means we have to pay taxes, lots of taxes. And one of the departments that we have to pay taxes into is our school district. Well, we know that, first of all, schools have been shuttered for the last 4 months. So why should we pay taxes into something that doesn't exist? One. And two is the kind of curriculum that will be coming out in the future, based on all the research we've done with Alison McDowell and all the things that we've read and what we know is involved in the so-called curriculum, isn't actually curriculum at all. The kids are not actually going to be learning anything. They're just going to be told sort of how to behave, and they'll get badges to say whether they're, a good boy or girl.
Well,
It's very indoctrination.
Yeah, right.
type
Yeah,
of-
so they're not really learning.
They're not learning.
They're being trained.
They're being trained how to be
Yeah.
good little slaves
Yeah, in the future.
for the future.
So-
and that is fundamentally not something that we want to pay into. Like, we would feel that is a huge, it would be like if someone told you, well, you still have to pay your taxes for the railways that are being built for the train cars that are going to go to the incinerators. No, I'm not going to pay for that. That's how we feel about the curriculum that, and you know that I'm making a reference to the Holocaust.
Right.
So, you know, so the point, so we brought this up to a group that we follow called Keep Pennsylvania Schools Normal or something like that. And the response that we got to that was, oh, well, if you don't pay your school district taxes, then they'll just sue you and they'll just take your house and they'll just do all these terrible bad things to you. And that is a 20th century response to this 21st century corporate fascist takeover that we live in. Municipalities are bankrupt. They have no money. They don't have the money to file all the necessary paperwork and do all that bullshit to try to take our house, which in this fascist economy has depreciated in value and wouldn't even cover the cost of the taxes in the first place.
Right.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. So
they're not going to waste their money with that.
Right. So the schools don't have any money.
The school district is not paying into the educational curriculum.
Right.
Google is.
Google is, right, and the social impact investing, right?
Right.
So what's going on is that Google now owns the education system along with the other what are they called, those schools, the charter schools, right? So they're all, you know, basically teaching our children in a for-profit situation rather than a municipal situation, and yet the municipality is still going to charge us taxes for these schools in which they're indoctrinating and training children to be, you know, future slaves,
right,
rather than teaching them to become human beings and contribute to the society that, you know, we feel, you know, that all of us, I think, feel is necessary.
Now, if I was a multi-millionaire and living in, I don't know, say Seacliff, which is a very posh neighborhood in San Francisco, and all of the cute little school children in my posh little neighborhood still went to this really cool, hip little school where they were learning everything. Language. They're all learning, you know, 2 or 3 different languages. They're learning how to code. They're learning marketing. They're learning, you know, real science. They get amazing field trips. They get field trips all over the world. And the school district said, I need you to pay your taxes so we can do that. I would say, sure, yeah, because that's an education. But only rich people get an education now. Poor people are told, you get a badge. You get a badge for being obedient. And that's basically what's happening in my neighborhood. In my neighborhood of deep poverty, these kids that live here are not being taught anything. They're not even being taught how to grow tomatoes or boil rice to take care of themselves. They're not being taught anything of use. So why should I pay into a program that's not teaching them anything? It's funded already by impact investors, Google, all sorts of tech stuff, okay? They are already paying for all of that. And if the parents are okay with it, again, I'm not here to be anyone's conscience. I'm not here to tell people what's right or what's wrong, but I'm saying that for where we're sitting, paying into that seems like paying into something really, really bad. Yeah. Paying into great pain and poverty. Investing into someone's future, which is nothing but poverty and pain. I don't want to be a part of that investment, just like I don't want to be a part of the investment where they had to lay the railway so that they could put the train car on the railway to put the people in the train car to take them to the incinerators. Like, that's not, I don't want to be a part of that at all.
Right. So
that's how I feel about it.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel very strongly about it, if you can't.
I hadn't noticed, Julie.
Yeah,
so the badges that she's talking about, and I just want to make this point real quick before I go on to the next couple points, in 20th century thinking is a 21st century idea that is basically these badges, they're not something they put on their shirt. They're not gold stars. They are digital badges that are graphics that go on to the child's individual profile page that's associated with, like, say, Google Classroom. And these basically tell you that they have achieved this particular amount of information before they can go on to the next thing. So basically kids are being spoon-fed information. They're not being taught to really, like, learn things. They're being trained. So these badges then end up allowing them to get into other programs and other means of learning other things. But eventually, what we'll be seeing is what's called digital service platforms, and those are basically they're sort of like Guru.com or some of these other sites that allow you to offer your services to the world at race to the bottom pricing, and you do a service for somebody. And you're competing with other people in the world for doing it. So it's not really, they call it self-employment and entrepreneurship, but it's really not. And so these badges kind of go into that kind of system where it's like this platform that's digital, is all controlled, your employment and your education and your learning and your contribution to the community is all digitized, and it's all on a platform, and it's all controlled.
Right. So just to go into a teensy bit more detail about that, if student slave does not do enough for his community, then that means that he would be set up on a path to something else. He would be, and if student comes from like a single parent household, student slave has a background of emotional issues or whatever, he's just going to go to prison. I mean, there's really no hope for student slave at that point. Like, he's just on the pathway to prison. So we've already set out these really basic parameters, pre Fourth Industrial Revolution, 20th century. And the Clintons helped establish this.
Right, the school-to-prison pipeline.
School-to-prison pipeline was helped established by the Clinton administration. So this is that on steroids.
Right,
it's
exactly.
even worse.
Right.
I would totally fail in the
Well, I know. They're not going after us yet.
I'm so glad that I'm not a child.
Yeah. So what we've been noticing that there's a lot of 20th century thinking all over social media, and it's coming from the right as well as the left. Yeah, and it is getting very annoying. And so a couple things that I've noticed is, like, from the right, we're seeing a lot of people, like commentators and people, like on Facebook, just making comments. And they're blaming this bullshit with the COVID action and all this stuff. They're blaming it on communism and on,
you wish.
The unrest
you wish it was
and the protests. And granted, the BLM and the protests, they're using leftist language, but they're not. They're only using the outward symbols and the signs of leftist dialogue and language. They're just using the words. They're not really leftists. They're not really communists. And as we pointed out in communitarianism, that's what's going on there. So blaming this all on communism instead of what it really is, another 20th century thing is fascism, which actually is what's going on. In the form of totalitarianism, is really what's going on. It's not communist totalitarianism, it's corporate totalitarianism, okay? Which is a more 21st century thing that's going on. From the left, there's lots, and we hear all the talk on the left side, and there's all this anti-fascist talk, and the people on the right are going, oh, Antifa, and Antifa isn't real, okay, guys? Antifa, the people at least you're calling Antifa, are just they're hired goons.
Okay, so like Catherine Austin Fitts says, these Antifa terrorists, whatever, they are paid in the form of gift cards and incentives. They get, their hotel rooms paid for. They get gift cards, $1,000 gift cards to go, Visa gift cards that are not traceable and not trackable.
And then they can cash those out.
So they can cash those out and, do whatever the fuck and go to the next protest.
Right, exactly. So they're paid operatives.
This is the protest industrial complex.
Right. So, and as we pointed out in another situation where BLM, the organization, the SMO, is getting billions of dollars from corporations from all over the world. Okay, so set that aside. Now, on the left, they're going, yay, Antifa, yay, leftist, blah, blah, blah. Okay, and so they're supporting the stuff, not realizing, of course, that this is all bullshit, and that, BLM is corporate sponsored. And they're ignoring, what we're seeing is they're ignoring the real fascists that are taking place. So they're going, yay, anti-fascists, yay BLM and all this crap, and they're going along with all that bullshit, but they're ignoring what's really going on in the background, the fascism that's really going on. People like Nancy Pelosi, okay, who the right hate and the left hate as well, okay, she is a true fascist. Why do I say that? Because she's supporting something called
the Defense Production
the
Act.
Defense Production Act. She
The
just
DPA.
put out a tweet bitching at Donald Trump for not getting it out there fast enough. He's already signed it into.
He's already signed it into place.
He's already set it up
Back in March.
Yeah, he's already put it into motion.
You stupid idiots.
But
Sorry.
she's pushing it even harder so that it basically will come into motion even quicker or even sooner. And basically what this is true fascism. According to Mussolini's own definition of the word, it's basically taking the government, a portion of the government and a portion of corporations and merging them.
Absolutely.
And so we'll be seeing more and more of this for whatever government purpose it is necessary. They will use the corporations for their needs. And so that's the Defense Production Act. The Federal Reserve is issuing debt all over the place, and the Federal Reserve is a private bank, but
not a government.
But it's the bank to the government, and it's also instrumental in merging corporations with governments through lending of money, so debt, and through purchases that it's making. Of debt, okay, and then so we have corporations and governments merging through these different means, and then finally again coming back to what we were talking about before with the public-private partnerships, and you're seeing this at local levels, you're seeing these at regional levels. Regional levels, where like the state coalitions that we're talking about before in our Great Reset or our introduction video. Where you've got states like 7 states like New York and Pennsylvania and Connecticut and et cetera, are basically coming together, and appointed people are setting up not laws but initiatives that will supersede laws and make it look like they've taken over the laws, like the mask.
Yeah, not a law.
Yeah.
Just very quickly, let me give some real world examples of what all this means. The reason that they want to shutter and smash and flatten all small businesses all across the globe is because they want to keep Target, Home Depot, Walmart, big corporations running and working in tandem with the government. So Walmart and the government will merge, and the government then will own 51% of Walmart, which means that Walmart, the CEO of Walmart, which are the Walton family, will probably get a nice big chunk of change from the government and say, sure, go ahead, take our business, take 51% of our ownership, which means now Walmart is controlled by the government. Okay, so that's fascism.
Right.
The same thing with Target, same thing with Home Depot. That's why you're seeing the smash and grab from all the small businesses all across the country. And when you have fascism, you don't need things like movie theaters and cutesy little restaurants and bars. The government doesn't want to waste their time trying to take over those little places.
Right.
They want construction companies. They want to take over, big corporations. And they do it under the guise of the emergencies.
Oh, from COVID, right?
The Emergency Act or whatever. The Emergency
COVID Emergency, whatever. Okay. The other thing that what we mentioned in one of our other videos in the Great Reset is that the supply chains are part of this too. We're seeing the drying up of supply chains, and I think that what's going on there is we're not seeing a real drying up the supply chain. What we're seeing is a withholding of goods. And they're not going out to the smaller stores. They're not going. I went out to my local hardware store, and granted, it's a true value, so it's part of a chain.
Part of a big corporation that's been swallowed by the government, so it'll probably be okay.
Well, no, I don't think so, because
you think it's going to go away?
True Value and Ace are basically these are owned by people. They are franchises. Okay. They're part of a network of stores that are the True Value stores, but they all are franchises. And these stores, since they are small business owners, they're not getting the goods. I was there at the store the other day, and they said, oh, well, we just don't seem to be getting, the things we ordered very much anymore, and they're not coming as quickly as they used to. Well, there's a reason for that. And they're, again, like you said, they're in competition with Home Depot, but because they're small businesses, they're being, you know, squeezed out by means of like withholding things. Remember the toilet paper shortage?
Fake.
That was fake. I go to Aldi now and there's plenty of it. That was all being withheld. They did the same thing in Venezuela. Small businesses are being attacked because they don't fit within the smooth operations of the supply chains that are coming along, that are going to fit into blockchain ledger systems.
Exactly.
Okay. The other thing that's going on with that is that small businesses allow for self-employment. And there's going to be a lot of self-employment. Well, everything is going to be going away except for what we talked about a few minutes ago, and that is the digital service platforms that say that they're for entrepreneurship and self-employment, but again, they're a controlled environment. Whereas, you know, if you're a bar owner or you're a barber or you're a mechanic, okay, these are things that you can do. You can learn a trade. You can open a store or a shop, and you can be self-employed, and that's that. But that's messy, right? That doesn't fit into the clean, streamlined supply chains and blockchain ledger systems that are part of what's coming forward. And that is part of the reason that small businesses are being attacked and being squeezed out.
Right.
And so, you know, the idea that that's the other thing too, is that these are businesses that are part of the 20th century, and they are now going away.
Right. So again, we have to start looking. We have to move away from this 20th century kind of infantile
way of responding.
It's not a left-right thing. It's a top-down thing. Yeah. It's a top-down fight, and you know, a few techno-fascists out there have taken over the government and have occupied the government. It's a government of occupation now, as the UK column always reminds us every day. We would like to know who's running the show, right, is what they say about their government. They're in the UK, and I say the same thing every day. Who the fuck is running this show?
Right.
You know, down to our local municipality, which has had its doors shuttered for the last few months, all the way up to, you know, the big government, you know, where the United States of America, or the president of the United States is, you know. Right. Who's running the show? Well, the people that have occupied it. So those are the central banks, those are the corporations, the techno-fascists, people that are coming right out of, you know, the World Economic Forum.
Yeah, and the you know, the sort of puppet politicians that have been put into place. So, for instance, like Governor Wolf here in Pennsylvania, who's once again putting us into a red sort of lockdown scenario. And, you know, we've noticed that, well, we wanted to talk a little bit about how, you know, you'll probably be seeing more of this. California's already done it, and once we saw California do it, we knew that Pennsylvania wouldn't be far behind. Mm-hmm. And so all these like arbitrary rules, these arbitrary lockdowns. Oh, well, you know, we're open now, except bars can only have this thing and that thing. And
you never know. Every day it's something different. And that's the sign of a very toxic relationship. So that's why I don't care anymore, whether we're green or red, open, closed, shut, mask off, whatever. It doesn't matter, because it's a toxic relationship where you always have to guess. And I'm tired of guessing, and I'm tired of engaging. I'm done. I'm done. It was a nice, how long is the United States? How old is the United States?
Well, about 240.
So it was a nice relationship for 200 years, but I think I'm done. I think it's time to break up.
Yeah.
I think it's time to break up. So going back to multi-state coalitions, this is important. So what it is a multi-state coalition is a combination of a group of states. So for Pennsylvania, it's Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, Rhode Island, Delaware, Massachusetts, and Connecticut. 7 states. For California, I think it's California, Washington, Oregon. 3 states. And these governors of each of these states are basically co-opted, and so it's a government of occupation, and they have opened their doors to corporations, and the corporations have pushed the governors out of the governor chair, sat right down, and started to sign off on initiatives on how your states will run. And that's what's going on. And that's why you're open, you're closed, you're open, you're closed. You don't know what the hell's going on. Because when you're going through a company reorg, which is basically what's happening in the country, is it's a big company reorganization. When you're going through a big company reorg, you've got, one initiative over here that says, well, I want this many computers, and one over here that says, well, I want this many. So they have to come to negotiations and agreements on, on the end result. So that's what's going on. And meanwhile, you, the staff or the slave, are pulled in every direction. Well, are we moving on to like 21st Street, or are we staying on 7th Street? Should I move the office now, or should I, so it's very confusing. So let them do their shit and whatever, reorganize your government, reorganize your life, but try not to engage and try not to invest in too much in your politicians and in your bureaucracy. They have no power. They have no power whatsoever. One thing I would like to remind you is that if anybody in office had any power whatsoever, especially the President of the United States, he could use his executive power, he could use executive orders, and he could fire everybody just like that. Just like he claimed, you fired. He could fire everybody and everything could go back to normal tomorrow. I'm not kidding. That's what the President of the United States is supposed to be there. When things get out of hand, when there's tyranny and corporate fascism, and when you have a government takeover, which is what we have, the President of the United States is supposed to use his executive power. So this means his power has also been stripped. Mm-hmm. Just like Governor Wolf, the governor of Pennsylvania, no longer has any COVID power and is being sued. He doesn't have any COVID power. You don't have to close your business. You don't have to wear a mask. He has no power. There is nobody that could take you to jail or arrest you or fine you, because it's not a law. There's never been a law. It's a suggestion. It's something that was created out of these corporate initiatives, which is not a law. It has nothing to do with you. So as a sovereign individual with individual and even constitutional rights, whether it's your state's constitution or your federal constitution, you have rights. So.
All right, well, I think the last thing we can talk about today is something we were talking about earlier, and that is how we talked about this before, how all the arts are being taken away. The humanities, the arts, anything that makes you a human, they're being taken away. So you can't go to a nightclub to see live music anymore. You can't go to the symphony. You can't go to...
That's fascism.
Yeah, of course. And so one of our followers on Facebook, Josette, posted an article, and
it got us to thinking.
It got us thinking more about it. And I'm not going to go into the article, but it basically is another example of some of the things that are going on. And we've been seeing like these statues being pulled down and rolled around and all this crap. We saw that in our communitarianism video. These are all statues that nobody really cares about. Until they were, brought up as, because they were slave traders. They represent figures who were slave traders. They were, people who, were responsible for this, that, and the other thing, kind of ugly in our past. Okay, all these statues, nobody really knew who they were because they'd been around for 200 years and nobody really cared. And so, because nobody cared, they started pulling them down to give you the idea that the arts and the humanities and anything that is from the past is being taken away. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple reasons for that. And one of the things that we've noticed is that they keep talking about is they being the technocrats, is that artificial intelligence is coming, okay, and it's going to be replacing almost everything that humans can do, okay, including the making of art.
Including the making of art.
Right. Now, when they talk about art, I think what they're talking about are artifacts, because I can't imagine artificial intelligence being able to do something that really requires consciousness, mm-hmm. or what other people would call a soul, in order to create something that is out of a human experience. AI cannot recreate, it can recreate something, but it cannot create something from the human experience because it's not human, okay? Poetry and art and writing and expository writing and the visual arts, dance, music, all these things, they have become, a lot of them have become an elitist sort of program that people are now railing against, and I understand that for sure. But the other side of this, though, is that we're getting a message that all these things are going away. History is going away, and the artifacts are being taken away to say that you no longer count. You can't make these things anymore. You will be replaced by machine learning and artificial intelligence. The reason that this is going on too is that because all the technocrats and all the billionaires, the ruling class, they own or they have donated to museums all the great works of art from the past, 1,000 years. Okay, they own the artifacts in one way or another, and they don't need any other new ones. They don't need anything else from us. Right? They don't need us anymore. And so they don't need us making more artifacts for them to collect. And so instead, we'll have robots making art and calling it art, and it's not really art, they're artifacts. Okay, so that's something really important to keep in mind. When they say AI is going to make art, it's not making art, it's making artifacts. And there's a difference. A painting is an artifact. Well, the idea behind the painting, how it makes you feel, that is the art. Okay? Understand that.
But, feelings.
Feelings, right, exactly. So they're destroying what makes us humans.
That's why the mask.
That's part of the reason for the mask. And, we're at the end of our hour.
So,
well,
it's okay if we go over a couple minutes. You can just take it out.
Okay, so did you have some other ideas that you were going to go into something?
Yeah, but before, but yeah. So regarding what he was just saying, too, is we can also attribute AI to some of the articles that we're seeing coming through the mainstream press, for sure. And one of the things, too, we're going back a couple of minutes ago where we were talking about this 20th century response to what's happening in this 21st century world. A lot of people say, stop watching the TV, stop doing this, stop doing that. Well, the thing is that the TV is not overrun by AI, but your articles that you're reading on NPR and the New York Times are. So I know that mainstream press is completely co-opted by corporations and propaganda and is always lying, but at least it's not run over by, or at least it's not taken over by AI.
Well,
so
it's like some
weird.
Stories might be, but you've got broadcasters giving them. But at the same time, though, people are saying stop watching your TV.
And that's a 20th century response.
But at the same time, we don't watch it, and
we don't even have
one. But the TV news, the CNN news, I mean, it's 95 to 99% bullshit. And I got an email today that was like basically, I've been getting these from the New York Times. I don't know why that is. But I've been getting these headlines from the New York Times that basically kind of like wrap up what's being said today in today's issue or this last week or whatever, and it's all propaganda. Period.
Yeah, and sometimes you can just read something and go, this was written by a robot.
Yeah.
It's the same thing why YouTube channels are getting taken down. There is not like a group of people in a secret office watching your YouTube channel and taking it down. No, it's just an algorithm and a program that's run, and a couple of things that you might say trigger the algorithm, and then boom, it gets taken down, and a whole channel could get taken down, or a video could get taken down. It's not personal. It's just that you're triggering the AI, the artificial intelligence, and the algorithms that are in place. And algorithms and AI are what's putting the screens, the enter at your own risk screen on Facebook. When you see an article, you click it says, oh, well, our fact checkers were hard at work and we're not sure that this article is appropriate for you. It's like, that's not a person putting that there. That's just the AI. That's just the artificial intelligence telling you how to think, because you've taught it for so long. So now it's telling you how to think.
Yeah, exactly.
It's pretty sick, actually.
It is.
So
And
understand that. Yeah, when you get those screens over articles that says, oh, well, the fact checker said I should not open this. Well, that's just a program that's telling you. You want to listen to a program? Listen to a program.
So the AI is both editing what you see as well as like writing a lot of the articles. Now, when I say the AI, I mean that's a broad term, and there are different programs and different applications out there that do different things.
Right.
But what we're talking about is we're getting to the point where artificial intelligence is creating artifacts, and part of those artifacts are news stories. They're also editing. They're also eliminating. So we've been seeing a lot of channels on YouTube and whatnot being just taken down,
wiped out.
And they're being taken down not by people, but by the artificial intelligence that is being used to scan the vast network of videos that are out there to look for content. We have been victims of this ourselves. We actually pay for a
Can you imagine?
Yeah, we actually pay for a subscription to Vimeo that allows us to put
safe.
Right, because we paid for it, we were safe. Allows us to put our videos up there. We've had 4 or 5 videos taken down already, and it's like talking to the wall about it because they're like, well, our decision is made, and that's because they used a machine to take it down, and the people that work there are not going to back that up. They're not going to say, or they're going to back that up, and they're not going to say, oh well, we will put it back up because after we looked at it, which they say they're going to do, they always say, well, we'll look into this. Well, our decision has been made and it's final.
It's been made by the AI. Right. So the only way that we could possibly have is if we sue Vimeo, and that's it, and we sue them for future profit that we could have made off our videos.
Right.
So we don't sue them for the $80 a year or whatever it was that we were paying them. We sue them for $25,000 or something like that, and that's how you do it. You're like, well, you've taken away future profit. Your AI, your artificial intelligence, your algorithms have taken away future profit for me, so we can settle out of court for what I believe this future profit would have been.
Right. Exactly.
So you get a lawyer for a couple grand to help you with that, and who knows? He gets some money, you get some money, and whatever.
Julie, that's the 20th century.
I know, that's 20th century, a response to a very complicated problem, which a lot of people are facing right now. But one thing we do know for sure in this whole existential crisis that we're all facing is that artificial intelligence, which is kind of taking over and running the show now, in every facet of your life, including how your children are educated and how you go about your life, is trying to take away the human aspect, the humanity of yourself. It's trying to excoriate the thing that makes you human. And I keep coming back to this day in and day out, and I always talk about it in my podcasts and I try to write about it, but it's the human part of yourself that they're really just trying to flatten and stomp out and get rid of. Everything from your individual footprint in the way that you operate your small business, to how you go to Target and buy, seeds or whatever, or materials or supplies that you need. Every aspect of your life, the humanity of it, is that human aspect of your life is being ripped out of you. And one of the best ways to indicate that that's happening, the signal that you can look, the clue, there's a clue to prove to you that the humanity is being crushed and smashed out of you like a bug. The clue is the mask. The mask tells you that the humanity is being ripped out of society, just ripped out. And what's happening to a lot of people is they're having a real emotional reaction to that. They're having a human reaction to seeing humanity being ripped away from itself. And they're going into their cars and they're sobbing and they don't know why. And they're going live stream on Facebook or whatever, and they're sobbing and they're like, I don't understand why this is happening. And it's because what you're witnessing is something profoundly terrible and existential. You're witnessing the destruction of humanity, and the mask proves it. It tells you that. And so that's your reaction to it. And that's why we're not playing anymore. We're not playing this game anymore. It's too serious. It's too important. No more mask. No more mask. Not playing anymore. My humanity, his humanity, your humanity, the humanity of the world is at stake here. It really, truly is. And you have to, if you want humanity and you don't want to see the thing that makes you human and the thing that makes you unique in the world and precious in your family's eyes or in God's eyes or whatever you believe in, if you don't want to see that going away, then you have to fight. and you have to tell these stores and these institutions that are forcing you to put on a mask, not a law. It's not a legislatively passed law by any stretch. It's just a store policy. And if you're tired of looking around and seeing all of these people just giving up their humanity so easily, there are still a lot of us out there that don't want to give up our humanity. Just hand it over to the AI. Just hand it over to the robots and the algorithms. I know this sounds crazy, but we just don't want to do that. We just don't want to give it up anymore. And we want to look around Target, and we want to look around our grocery store, and we want to see other people like us. We want to see other people without a mask on. We don't want to see the signals that humanity is going away anymore. We don't want to see it. And so the stores and the corporations out there, what they need to do is have dedicated hours for people who can't wear masks, for people who cannot wear masks. Can't do it. You have a religious exemption and you have a medical exemption. You just do. And you can't wear masks. So those stores and those corporations and those companies, those hardware stores and those grocery stores and those department stores that are still open here and there, they need to have dedicated hours or dedicated days for no mask. There is a form that you can slap down on the customer service desk. You don't have to sign your name to it. It's not a legal document. It's just a suggestion. How about you dedicate a certain amount of time every day for people who can't wear masks? That way, when you go to the store and you need to get your supplies and you look around, you will see other human beings without masks. And until it gets to that point, you're not shopping. Until it gets to that point, you're not going anywhere. You're going to withhold your power, you're going to withhold your purse, your money, and you'll either go ahead and order online. I know it's just as bad because then you're uploaded into a blockchain scenario and all that bullshit.
But that's going to happen anyway.
That's going to happen anyway.
Yeah.
At least hold on to your humanity. No more masks. And so we'll include the link to that form that you can print, and when you get in your truck or get in your car and you go get your supplies, you can take this form that you can print and you can just hand it to the cashier. You don't have to say anything. Or you can hand it to the manager, or you can take it to customer service.
You can also download it and email it to the manager at that store. You can also mail it in by post.
Right.
Yeah.
Right now, too much is at stake. No more playing around. No more masks. No playing around, no face shields, no mask, no more. This is too important. Right now, it's go time. We have to do this now. We have to do this yesterday, but let's do it now. I'm serious. So thank you for listening.
Okay.
This was a very interesting podcast and bookmark episode, so I'm glad that you guys joined us today.
Yeah, and we'll put those links and the link to that letter in the show notes, okay? So look for that, and you can, it just takes you right to it's a PDF, so you can download it, you can print it, whatever you want to do.
Okay.
All right, we'll see you next time on podcast.
Bye.
On Bookmark.
On Bookmark.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Book of Hours is determined to remain an essential platform that offers a creative interpretation for lockdown skeptics and experts who have been censored by mainstream press. Thanks to your donations, we can carry on doing this essential work as working artists. These big issues of the day are vital and need to be heard. So please share our videos, subscribe to our YouTube channel, make a one-time donation on our PayPal page, but most importantly, please be a part of our team on our Patreon page. Go to patreon.com/bookofhours and hit the blue button titled Become a Patron. Thank you.